To strike the iron while it is still very, very hot. So it's my pleasure now to invite the University Orator, Professor Oyedunni S. Arulogu, to give the citation of the guest lecturer.
May I humbly request Her Excellency to please stand. The Vice Chancellor, members of the University of Ibadan Management, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I stand here today to present an Amazon who arrived this planet in a remarkable and unforgotten year, the year that the Civil Rights Act was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson of the United States of America. On a day in numerology associated with divine, about change, which often leads to having a positive outlook, a day to bring good luck and prosperity to those who embrace it. Eccentric and philosophical, Leos born on August 13 possess a kinetic energy that is the envy of all who know them. They are talented individuals who can make a name for themselves in anything they attempt. Challenges seem to awaken their fighting spirit and give them the inspiration they need. August babies are born with many leadership traits like boldness, charisma, and loyalty. That is no wonder they make great trailblazers. The personality just described is no other person than Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan. Born on August 13, 1964 in Kaduna State, she is an indigene of Ikoyi Ijumu in Kogi State. She had her primary education at Bishop Smith School, Ilorin, and then went to Federal Government College, Ilorin, for her secondary education. She proceeded to this great university, and she graduated in 1987 as the best Bachelor of Dental Surgery student. She also holds a certificate in health planning and management, master's degree in public and international administration, both with distinctions from the universities of Ilorin and Lagos, respectively. Widely described as an ardent reformer characterized by her day, month, and year of birth, Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan is known for her passionate and visionary leadership of the Nigerian civil service. She started her career at the Federal Ministry of Health and rose to the rank of director and served in many different capacities until she was appointed Federal Permanent Secretary in year 2012. Dr. Yemi-Esan served as Permanent Secretary, Service Policies and Strategies Office in the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, and thereafter in the Federal Ministry of Information, where she first initiated and pioneered the automation of workflows with a solution dubbed File Tracker. In addition, Dr. Yemi-Esan served in the Federal Ministry of Education, Career Management Office, and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, where she was appointed as director on the boards of Nigeria LNG and the Bonny Gas Transport Limited. At the helm of affairs of the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Yemi-Esan's service to the nation has been suffused with remarkable and unprecedented strides, which validate government's commitment to the welfare and development of its workforce and are a precursor to the attainment of a new civil service of our dream. These include the implementation of the flagship enterprise content management solution, the successful service-wide development of standard operating procedures, driving the performance management system to replace ineffective and paper-based annual performance evaluation reports, and the introduction of International Organization for Standardization certification in the civil service. Other landmark achievements worth mentioning are the implementation of massive and structured training and capacity building programs for all cadre of officers, including permanent secretaries, the review of the public service rules and the schemes of service, reinforcement of the planning officer cadre, unprecedented upgrading of the human resource module of the Integrated Personnel and Payroll System, IPPIS, which led to the successful cleanup and verification of data of all staff in core and non-core MDAs. Undoubtedly, Dr. Yemi-Esan's remarkable achievements and unassuming disposition have earned her many accolades. Most prominent are the National Honor of the Commander Order of the Federal Republic, CFR, and National Productivity Order of Merit, MPOM Award. She is a member of the Institute of Directors, Nigeria, and fellow Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, as well as Chartered Institute of Loan and Risk Management of Nigeria. In pursuit of transforming the Federal Civil Service to a world-class institution driven by technology, Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan, CFR, is championing culture change management, meritocracy, and institutionalizing rewards and recognition of officers in the service. I hereby present to you the 2023 Convocation Lecturer, Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan, CFR.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Thank you.
As civil servants, arriving late for work and performing poorly cannot help Nigeria's image and level of development. What we do and don't do matters. It is our duty to deliver public services. There may be times when we are asked to do things we know we shouldn't do, but if we fail to fulfill our duties in an ethical manner and with integrity, we serve will suffer. It is not just when we neglect to do our work, it is also about the way we do our work. If we work in ways that are outdated and inefficient, it will take a lot more time to do a lot less. We cannot continue working this way. We need to embrace technology and move into the digital future where work is faster and more efficient. We want to live in a country where everyone is treated fairly and receives the same quality public service. So, rather than serving our own interests with greed, we need to put the interests of our people first. So, by embracing a good work ethic and more efficient systems, better technologies, and law-abiding public servants, we can build a more prosperous Nigeria. And by building this Nigeria now, our country will be capable of giving our people a better life in the future.
The Vice Chancellor, the DVCs, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I commence my presentation, I just want to make a few comments. The first one is to acknowledge the presence of the permanent secretaries that came with me from Abuja, and also the head of service from Oyo State. I really appreciate your presence here and your moral support. My second comment is, as I sat down beside the VC there,
I was asking myself, is this the same Trenchard Hall? What happened? Has it become smaller or I have become bigger? I'm still trying to figure that out. But I feel deeply honored to be here this afternoon and to be selected from among very numerous qualified alumni of this foremost citadel of knowledge to deliver this year's convocation lecture. I'd like to seize this opportunity also to congratulate the VC, Professor Kayode Adebowale, for his unrelenting and insistence that I must be here today. I thank God that you succeeded. It's a very, very big deal to get me out of my office. So congrats, VC. I also just want to congratulate everybody, including myself, on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of this very great institution. At 75, there's indeed a lot to celebrate and to be thankful to God for, particularly in view of the remarkable accomplishments and contributions of the University of Ibadan to national development by producing men and women of excellence and sound character in various fields of endeavor for more than 7 decades and still counting. As we were singing the Unibadan hymn, I could resonate with the words of that hymn. It is indeed only a great institution that can produce great men and women. In celebrating yet another milestone, we should also seize this opportunity to further reflect on ways of improving the critical roles of the University of Ibadan and other institutions of learning. Because the institutions play a great role in molding individuals, especially if we want these individuals to have high moral standards and intellectual repute for the good of humanity. I've not had this phrase, I don't know if it is archaic or if it is still on, because in Abuja we still use it. Great UIs. I thought it was not being used because I've not heard it this afternoon. On this day, we celebrate the foresightedness of our founding fathers, and in doing so, we should remain conscious of the importance to keep the light shining by remaining knowledgeable and demonstrating sound judgment, for therein our greatness truly lies. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when the management of this university, the VC and the registrar came to my office some time ago and extended this invitation to me, I asked for the topic they would like me to talk about. And they said I should choose any topic that I wanted and a topic that is of great interest to me. And so I started reflecting. What should I talk about today? A number of topics came to my mind. Some of these include insecurity. Nigeria has been struggling with security challenges. So should I talk about that? Or should I talk about the perpetual brain drain or the Japa syndrome, which we are faced with now? Or is it the recent subsidy removal that I should talk about? Or is it just a government policy? These thoughts kept coming and coming. And so in choosing a topic of this convocation lecture, I opted for a subject that will address fundamental issues which impact on the overall quality of our human resource, and also one that will give me the opportunity to share my experiences in life. And these experiences will include my time here in UI, my public service career, and other aspects of my life, especially including my faith in God, which has shaped my personal. It is therefore hoped that this lecture will give everybody here a broader outlook to life and guide our decisions as life after UI begins. It is also hoped that the lecture will speak to leaders and managers of people and resources, especially the operators of the education sector, who daily engage in impacting knowledge to very young minds. And so my paper today is titled Promoting the Culture of Meritocracy for National Development. And this paper will be presented in 5 parts. I'll start by trying to give some definitions. Then I'll talk about my experiences outside Nigeria and how other systems are dealing with their meritocratic systems. Then I'll talk briefly about the benefits of the meritocratic culture. And I'll also talk about the role of the academia and the education system in entrenching meritocracy. I'll talk about what we are doing in the public service in Nigeria to make sure that we have a meritocratic system. Then finally, I'll conclude with a few recommendations and a conclusion. Definitions. Since I'm here in UI, where everybody here is a prof, you might agree with my definitions or disagree, but for this afternoon, I'll define the word meritocracy as coined in 1958 by Michael Young. And he coined this word from the Latin word merire, which means earn, and the Greek word kratos, which means power. So when we put these together, meritocracy means a system where authority, reward, or status are given to individuals based on their ability rather than for primordial motives. In an essay titled Principles of Meritocracy and its Importance Within the Framework of the U.S. Socio-Economic and Political Systems, Andrew Langer opined that in the grand scheme of social ideals, meritocracy reigns as one of the most impactful principles, fostering a society where individuals rise to prominence and power based on their abilities and achievements rather than birthright or privileges. This is with the understanding that without the right people or operators of the critical areas of the public sector, the institutions of public governance and the administrative machinery will struggle in futility to make the country work. Strong institutions, a capable workforce, and good governance are all centrally hinged on meritocracy. A system where the most capable and those with the best ideas take leadership to create value for all should be the goal of any forward-looking society. Therefore, it follows to state that since meritocracy inspires competition and competition brings out the best, we should all imbibe the principles of meritocracy. In my sojourn as head of service, I had the opportunity to visit quite a number of countries to study their public service. And most of them have imbibed the principle of meritocracy, which underscores the very foundation of a fair society, where hard work, talent, and innovation are rewarded. It is pivotal in maintaining a free and prosperous society. Drawing from the definition I gave earlier on, meritocracy today can be said to entail the upholding of the ideology that whatever your social position at birth, society ought to offer enough opportunity and mobility for talent to combine with personal effort in order to rise to the top. In the UK, the then Prime Minister Theresa May once proclaimed that she wants Britain to be the world's great meritocracy, a country where everyone has a fair chance to go as far as their talent and their hard work will allow. Also, a former US President, Barack Obama, echoed the same opinion, maybe in some different words, but he said, "We are true to our creed when a little girl called Folasade, born into maybe the bleakest poverty, knows that she has the same chance to succeed as anybody else." In a meritocratic system, positions of authority as well as responsibility are ceded to individuals who have earned such positions through diligence and competence, rather than their socio-economic status or other socio-demographic characteristics. Sometimes we call that godfatherism here in Nigeria, or man no man. Meritocracy or government by those with talent seems self-evidently a very good idea. The most able people will produce the best possible results. Therefore, the welfare of the whole population will be optimized. Meritocracy offers a fair system which results in better outcomes for both the individual and the society. So I'll give some examples from personal experience. During my study tour to India and my interaction with the head of the public service in that country, I asked about their system and how merit-based it was. And I was informed that there's a system that they have put in place for especially the recruitment of new officers into the civil service in India. And this system involves a very decentralized examination. That means the examinations take place in every local government area, whatever it is they call it there, in India. And then they select the best candidates from each of these regions. And this exercise takes place once every year. And it is void of any form of external interferences. And then I asked, how do you deal with the legislators, Do they have a list? Do they come with a list? How do you deal with the permanent secretaries, the ministers? And they said the Civil Service Commission is very, very independent, and nobody gives anybody a list. It is purely on merit. According to a researcher, Dr. Maidoki Peter, in his paper titled A Critical Examination of Recruitment Strategies in India and in Nigeria, published in 2013, he says that the Indian civil service is more efficient and effective in recruiting more qualified staff. This is so because the country's system of recruitment is based on qualification and merit. I will not tell you what is said about the Nigerian system. Likewise, the Singaporean public service increasingly looks to recruit talent from the private sector. They don't even recruit from maybe jobless, a pool of people who don't have work yet. They go to the private sector and get the best, the high flyers, the high performance in the private sector are the people that are brought into the Singaporean public service. It is on record that this system has played a key role in Singapore's nation-building journey. We all know that when you're looking for the best public service in the whole world, everybody points you to Singapore. Now we know the secret. Also in China, they have their own version of the civil service examinations. And this allows China to find the best candidates to staff their very big bureaucracy. And this is not a recent thing in China, because this dates as far back as 202 BC. And currently, the country administers the China National Public Service Exam, which consists of a written test, an oral interview, an assessment. However, instead of assessing a candidate's professional abilities, the written test primarily evaluates the candidate's general knowledge and reasoning ability. The test usually covers a very wide range of topics, including politics and policies, general knowledge, judgment and reasoning, data analysis, and writing. I tried to find African countries who have established meritocracy as a system. One of such countries I encountered is Rwanda. They have a recognized system based on merit. So it means that in Africa, we have not imbibed this culture of meritocracy, or even if we have, it's not well documented yet. So what are the benefits of a meritocratic culture? We've said it before that meritocracy provides talented and hardworking people from all walks of life with a means of advancement and the opportunity to contribute to the well-being of the larger society. Economically, meritocracy is a key driver of innovation and productivity. When rewards and advancements are tied to performance, it encourages individuals to improve their skills, innovate, and work efficiently. Removing this incentive might lead to a decline in overall productivity. This even applies to what most of us are interested in, especially in the public service, procurement processes. A situation where contracts are not awarded to the most qualified bidder will eventually lead to the poor delivery of services, works, and critical infrastructure. And this would ultimately slow down or impede socioeconomic growth and development. Additionally, a country governed by the best and the brightest must surely be better run than one that is not. There is good evidence to support this conclusion. There's quite a number of researches that have been done, and it is proven that societies and states that run on merit have higher rates of economic growth than those that do not. This is important as higher educational attainment among civil servants is linked to a higher tax revenue mobilization, which means they earn a lot more, reduced corruption, better public financial management, and higher economic growth. The highly influential 1997 World Development Report asserted that making a meritocracy of the civil service helps bring in high-quality staff, confers prestige on civil service positions, and can do a great deal to motivate good performance. On the contrary, where promotions are personalized or politicized, public servants worry more about pleasing their superiors or influential politicians, and efforts to build prestige through tough recruitment standards are undercut. This is from a World Bank report of 1997. So now we are coming back home. What's the role of the academia or the education system in entrenching meritocracy? We all agree that education is the hub of national development, and tertiary education remains the fulcrum on which sustainable development rests. Thus, the educational sector deserves quality in planning and execution of its own policies, as well as the monitoring of programs. For a nation's education system to produce the best brains that will bring their expertise to bear on the country's socio-economic development, it is vital that preference is given to the most qualified to provide learning to the most qualified learners who have both the attitude and aptitudes required to internalize the benefits of quality education. Thom Utua and Nkotara in 2016 observed that a sector as pivotal to national development as the educational sector must be administered by the standards the said nation hopes to attain. Thus, Nigeria's education system should reflect quality and competence in all ramifications. If this hallowed sector is to push the nation to the desired heights projected by our founding fathers. This view was also corroborated by Torres and Quaresma in 2017. And they argued that meritocracy is the distinctive factor between the educational systems in developed and underdeveloped nations. They also said that meritocracies induce competitiveness and ensures that a nation's education sector conforms to global best practices. I know that UI, in the past and in the present, has maintained a high level of meritocracy. However, we also are aware that our tertiary education in Nigeria today is bedeviled with a lot of problems. Every day in the news, we hear issues of marks or sex for marks, or handouts for marks, or even that sometimes lecturers get paid for writing theses for students. I'm glad that doesn't happen here in UI, so we can move on. The management of our tertiary institutions must also demonstrate commitment towards eradicating all these aforementioned traits, and we must become ambassadors of what is happening here in the University of Ibadan to other universities. This is absolutely important. It will be recalled that this university, in line with its tradition and standards of zero tolerance for sexual harassment and misconduct, inaugurated an ad hoc committee to, among others, investigate some of the claims that were brought up. And I'm aware also that there is a whistleblower channel for students to report cases of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. This is certainly worthy of emulation. The academia must also tackle another trending form, which is trending form of academic malpractice, which is the hiring of project mercenaries. I've talked about it. Because this is one of the reasons the education system keeps churning out graduates with fraudulent grades, and the quality of research output will keep diminishing. It's often said here in Nigeria today that we don't have a problem of unemployment, but that the problem we have is that most of the graduates are unemployable. We need to work hard to ensure that every graduate that comes out from the University of Ibadan is a top-class graduate. Because the foundation of economic growth is from the students we produce. When we're looking to recruit students or graduates in the public service, we look out for the best students from the universities. Sometimes we're disappointed at what is termed best from some universities. So we need to really address this. Now we'll go to my terrain, the public service. We all know that the Federal Character Commission is the constitutional body that is empowered to recruit individuals into the civil service. And the Federal Character Commission Act also guides this principle of employment, because it talks about fairness and equity in the distribution of public posts and socioeconomic infrastructures among the various federating units. Nothing in the Act, therefore, prevents each state in Nigeria from offering their best into the public service. In other words, the states must ensure that their quota of vacancies for employment into the public service is filled with the best academically and professionally qualified persons of impeccable character. This idea was first implemented in 2006 when the then President Olusegun Obasanjo approved the employment of 1,000 officers with first class or second class upper graduates across the states of the Federation into the service. The states were therefore compelled at that time to fill their vacancies in the service with the best graduates. In the continued drive of government to entrench a merit-based system of appointments in the service. Before I go into that, I also want to say that when we were employed about 30-something years ago, it was also based on merit. States were asked to send their best to some centers where interviews were conducted, and then we were employed. That was as far back as 1990. I left Ilorin in Kwara State, where my parents were at that time, and traveled all the way to Kaduna because I saw an advert in the newspapers and I applied to get into the service. And so I went to Kaduna for the interview. And after the interview, I went back to Ilorin. After about a month or so, my father got a letter from the P.O. box saying I had employment in the federal service. I must confess that at that time, I was already in America. I didn't want to come back home, but my father insisted, bless his soul now. So Nigeria also has had incidences where we have insisted on merit and where merit has been the background of most of the employment. The Office of the Head of Service of the Federation is also currently working with the Federal Civil Service Commission to reinstate examinations before employment. A situation whereby there is no examination has taken a toll on the service, and so we are working with the Civil Service Commission to ensure that we also reinstate the process of examining candidates so that we can get the best from the states. Also, in the continued drive of government to entrench a merit-based system of appointment in the service, the Office of the Head of Service has adopted an approach whereby we are starting with what is within our control while we are working with the Civil Service Commission. And what is within the control of the Office of the Head of Service is the appointment of federal permanent secretaries. And Mr. President always approves that we go through a selection process for the selection, and then we now recommend the best, the top directors to Mr. President. The selection process entails a thorough accreditation exercise where the age, qualification, and other necessary information on the candidates are scrutinized. In addition, the qualified directors from the respective states where vacancies exist compete in 3 levels of tests, which are a written examination, an ICT test, and then an oral interview. It is after this that we now present candidates to Mr. President. I must say that the Federal Civil Service has done very well in this regard. In 2012, I sat for such an examination. There was a vacancy for permanent secretary that will come from Kogi State. And I applied, I sat for the examination. And what normally happened at that time is that there was no ICT exam. The ICT testing was done before the written exam. And so after the written exam, you'll be called on your phone to come for an interview. And most of the time, the marking of the scripts go on throughout the night. So most of the time, the candidates also don't sleep because you are waiting for that call. Because if you miss the call, it means you have missed that opportunity. So after the exam, I sat up all night waiting for the call. I didn't get a call. In the morning, I started calling other people that sat for the exam. Have you received the call? Have you received the call? Everybody said, no, we haven't received any call. So I was comfortable. And then finally, at about 8:30 a.m., my phone rang and I picked the call. And the voice there said, are you Yemi-Esan Folasade? I said, yes. So you're supposed to come to the office of the head of service at 9 for an oral interview. This was at 8:30. So instead of rushing to dress up, I sat down on the floor and I started crying. I don't know if it was for joy or whatever it was, I don't know. But finally we went through the stages and then we were waiting for the announcement by the president. The first day came, no announcement. The second day came, no announcement. And then people started giving me advice. Better go back home to your father and tell him to call the governor of your state so that he can talk to Mr. President on your behalf. And I said, I know my father, he won't answer me. They said, go. So I called my father on the phone. I said, you know I sat for PAMSEC exam. He said, yes, I know, and I'm praying for you. I said, but they said you have to call the governor of Kogi State so that he can call Mr. President. And what he said to me that day has remained with me till today. He said, Folasade, I have never begged anybody for anything. I will not start with this. If God wants you to become PAMSEC, he will make a way. If you don't become PAMSEC, that's not the end of the day. You go on with your career. I said, thank you, sir. And for the first time, I slept very well that night. Only for me to be in a meeting in the Ministry of Health. And then my phone wouldn't stop calling. What is it? What is it? Check your phone, check your phone. So, of course, I disrupted the meeting and went out to answer the call. And all I had was, congrats, your name has been announced as permanent secretary. I said, thank God. But that's not the end of my story. I went to the head of service at that time, Alhaji Sali. He's still alive today. And I said, good morning, sir. He said, what are you doing here? Who asked you to come to my office? I said, I came for my letter, sir. He said, you? Which letter? Who told you you have a letter in my office? I said, I'm one of the permanent secretaries you just appointed. He said, you are a permanent secretary? I said, yes, sir. He said, what's your name? I told him my name. He said, it's you. I said, what happened? I said, yes, sir. So I knelt down like I was brought up to say, thank you very much. He said, no. Here is your letter. Go back home. Lock your door. Hold your head and thank God for your head. And I did that exactly. So the story, or the essence of this story, is that when I became permanent secretary, I didn't know anybody. If the head of service didn't know me, I didn't. The first time of going into that building was when I went for my interview. And I didn't know anybody that knew the head of service. At a stage, my pastor actually called me and said, who are we going? Okay, give me one name, sir, so that we can be praying over the name. I said, I don't even know the permanent secretaries that were there. And so I became permanent secretary purely on merit. And when I became head of service, I made sure I went to God and told God, I said, I have become a permanent secretary by your grace. I didn't know anybody. And so by the grace of God, every permanent secretary that is appointed while I'm head of service will be based purely on merit. And so far, God has helped me. What most people don't understand, that the process of appointing permanent secretary is a very, very tedious and thorough process. Nobody, including the examiners, including the head of service, knows the questions that will be asked on the day of the examination. We set the questions at 6 a.m. The examiners wake up and sit down and set the questions. No prepared questions. Everybody just comes there with their brains. Their phones are confiscated with ICPC and EFCC because they are there in the hall with us. And then we start brainstorming. Somebody will say this, will say no, that person will say. So the questions are amalgamation of thoughts of the examiners. Nobody has any prepared questions before we get into the exam hall. And this is just with the objective of ensuring the credibility of the selection process. We also make sure we invite observers. Maybe the next time we'll invite the VC of this university to join us so that you will see what we do. I will invite you, sir. Because we invite the private sector to be a part. We invite development partners to be a part of that process. The last time we had somebody from the Lagos Business School to come and be a part of the examinations. And not each time we invite people, they say, so this is the level of objectivity of the process, just to ensure that we get the best brains. The two permanent secretaries that are here today, I didn't know them until they became permanent secretaries. And so by the grace of God, we have maintained that very high level of credibility. The Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation has also institutionalized the PMS by including the PMS in the revised 2021 Public Service Rules and making it mandatory that all ministries, departments, and agencies adopt this system. This will ensure that officers are assessed based on performance through a predetermined key performance indicators. This will then be used as yardstick for promotions and consequence management in the service. The federal government, through the office, is also demonstrating commitment to scale up on the quality of officers in the federal civil service across all cadres. This initiative is being driven through what we term the Leadership Enhancement and Development Program, LEAD-P, and this provides the public service with a pool of very talented officers that can be deployed for any administrative or strategic assignment. LEAD-P is a top talent program, and the training methodology adopted for this crop of people comprises the engagement of a mixed faculty team of local and international facilitators and industry experts. The program also entails rotational postings and attachments across major public service clusters. A key objective of the LEAD-P group is to expose participants or officers to both private sector and public sector experiences so as to deepen their understanding of their roles in the growth and development of the country. Very soon, it is hoped that this standard we have provided by these LEAD-P officers will become the benchmark in the service for recruiting all officers. The office also, in a modest effort to transform the civil service, has paid a lot of attention to capacity building. And in addition to the LEAD-P, we have what we call the SMART-P, which is a structured, mandatory assessment-based training program. And we do this for all officers. We also emphasize now on induction training for all newly recruited officers. Let me cut out all the other things we're doing because the VC mentioned what we're doing in the reform of the civil service. So I'll go to recommendations. In promoting the culture of meritocracy, public service institutions are therefore enjoined to observe the following. Number one is to institutionalize meritocracy at the top echelon of public administration of nepotism and favoritism in appointments. 3, promotion of transparency and competitive bidding for the award of critical infrastructure and services to boost socioeconomic stability and growth. 4, the support and collaboration of institutions of learning should be enlisted to help build a culture of meritocracy from basic to tertiary levels of education. There should also be equitable distribution of vacant positions while not compromising on merit. Traditional methods of recruiting should be complemented with e-recruitment solutions for transparency in having things based on merit. The University of Ibadan reinforced my tenacious faith when my effort was rewarded with grades that reflected true scores during my time here at the institution. And at this time, I must, as a matter of fact, recognize my own Egbon, who was a senior reg when I was here, Professor Arotiba. Thank you for the strict. I also want to recognize my friend, my brother, my colleague, my classmate, Professor Dele Kasim. Thank you for always being there for me. Thank you very much. I wish to congratulate everybody that is here today, especially the students that are here. It's important that you take the best advantage of your being in UI, the greatest university in Africa. I also want to leave you with some remarks. First, don't be afraid to take informed and sometimes calculated risks. In your aspiration for excellence, overcome failure with consistency, having the understanding that every failed attempt at anything is a step closer to mastery. So don't be afraid of failure, but learn the lessons from failure. Believe in your training, mentorship, capabilities, and talents, and never circumvent your confidence seeking the validation of other people. And lastly, pray without ceasing. It's important because you can be the brightest, you can be the best, but there are situations, there are circumstances that happen in life that only prayer can help out. I'll tell a story about the last permanent secretary's exam that we conducted. When we went to administer the questions, jokingly I said to them, while we're making copies of the exam paper, please pray. I said, this is something we neglect every time, but that there are some particular instances in our lives where the devil is waiting to attack, and they all laughed. I laughed with them. At the end of that particular exam, the ICT exam, 3 candidates had completed their job, but somehow they couldn't save on the flash drive and print. And I'd said that it is the printed paper that will be scored. So the 3 of them automatically, one of them had printed 1 copy, but the other 2 didn't have anything to print. And they knew after the exam, they told me that they did the thing very well. I said yes, but the examiners didn't see anything to mark. And I told them that maybe if you are taking my advice and you are brave, maybe it wouldn't have happened. So I just want to encourage all of us that success is not only brain and hard work. Prayer, our faith in God has a very big part to play. Now to my ogas, all the profs here, and all invited guests. I just like to end by saying our country would be much better if we all strive to promote the culture of merit in all our endeavors. Somehow, we know that the choices we have made in the past maybe have not worked as well as we thought it should. And we seem to expect that they will work someday. And therefore, we seem to be reinforcing those same choices instead of changing our ways. This only revalidates the foresightedness and wisdom of the great physicist Albert Einstein, who reported to have once said, insanity is making the same mistakes and expecting different results. Going forward, I urge us all that as we navigate life and career, as we rise to positions of leadership, we must never forget to demonstrate the commitment of evolving a meritocratic society, wherein individuals no matter how seemingly influential, don't need to, or preferably cannot drop their uncles, friends, sisters, classmates, in-laws, friends, brothers, colleagues, godfathers' name to secure opportunities in Nigeria. This charge goes especially to the graduates. You need to be able to rely on your God-given traits. Great UIs. I just said that to make sure we're not sleeping. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I wish to reiterate that by the grace of God, our vision towards evolving a civil service of our dreams is very well on course. We are indeed committed to changing the current narrative of who knows who. However, the creed of meritocracy remains sacrosanct in our desire of raising a crop of public servants who are passionate about Nigeria and can drive our national goals to fulfillment. Perhaps the words of the legendary figure of modern African literature, Chinua Achebe, in his novel, No Longer at Ease, will suffice to drive home the message of meritocracy, wherein he states that a person who has not secured a place on the floor should not begin to look for a mat. Thank you all for your kind attention. And I wish our graduating students God's favor and the attainment of truly, truly lofty heights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Head of Service of the Federation. The lecture was delivered like a true, in the usual, normal UI spirit of excellence. Please let's appreciate the excellence of all. Thank you very much. Now may I request the Vice Chancellor to give the closing remarks.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we appreciate our guest lecturer again? He has clearly elucidated the principles of meritocracy. But permit me to quickly recognize at least three people in this meeting, in this program, because it will be against that principle that we have just had if I don't do it. Meritocracy, that's the principle. First is when you have an MNI that is seated and you don't recognize the MNI, it is disservice. Particularly if that MNI is working, is a permanent secretary in the office of the head of service. It is against the principle. So let me appreciate Mrs. Lydia Jafia, MNI. She is the permanent secretary, common service office in the office of the head of service. Second, there is an individual that is seated there. He supervised my BSc, my MSc, my PhD in this university. And he seated there very quietly. Permit me to recognize Professor Ari Oderibe, Department of Chemistry. You see, it's my father that is seated there. So I fail to recognize him. Then I'm working against the principle of meritocracy. I also have my senior brother. He is seated there. His cap is always different. His cap normally stands very tall, taller than any other person. Because if I'm going back home, yes, they will refuse. In fact, they will lock the door. Dr. Gani Ademi, are you there? Permit me to also recognize the entire faculty of dentistry. They are here. The entire faculty. Because it's a dentist that is here. I appreciate you. You know, yesterday, we all listened here, we all sat down and listened to Engineer Professor Babagana Umara Zulu, MNI, the Executive Governor of Borno State. He spoke about leadership and citizenship. How a leader and the citizenry, how they can coexist in order to bring development to the doorstep, you know, of the populace. He spoke from the wealth of his experience, what he has encountered as an academician, what he has also encountered, you know, in public service. It was very practical. And I can also draw a parallel from all that we have had today. Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan has spoken, you know, from her wealth of experience. You know, he started, you know, by talking about herself. And that's how the executive governor, engineer professor, that was how he even started his lecture. At the risk of praising ourselves, can I declare to you that we did not make a mistake. He didn't make a mistake in inviting Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan to deliver this year's convocation lecture. And today's lecture is also a confirmation that graduating as the head of our class in dentistry, UI is not a flash in the pan. This Amazon has shown consistent brilliance in her career and has simply here demonstrated deep knowledge, insight and clear vision of what she wants concerning the civil service of the nation as a whole. The lecture has been very incisive, very eloquently delivered, and is worthy of our praise. So for what we have had today, we have enough materials to chew, just like the lecture of yesterday. Particularly that we can turn our establishment around. What this lecture has simply done is to provide a standard against which we can measure ourselves. You know, if there is no standard, there is a possibility that there will be no order, there will be anarchy. But once there is a standard in which you can measure, you will be able to say, when you put yourself on top of that balance, you will be able to measure yourself whether you are up to that standard. And essentially, that is what she has done. My admonition is that as individuals and as corporate entities, we should reflect on the content of the lecture. If we have opportunity to make amends, let us make amends. If we have made some mistakes in the past, we still have opportunity to make some corrections so that our society will be better for it. The head of service of the Federation and the UI at 75 Ambassador, I sincerely appreciate you for accepting the invitation and honoring us with your presence. I know that the discourse cannot end in these four corners, and that is our plan. We want it to be able to generate discourse that we will be able to talk about it even when we leave these four corners, but I know it must start from here. So on behalf of the university, we want to appreciate you. I'm waiting for my letter of invitation to attend the interview for the permanent secretary. Thank you very much.
I now request the registrar of the university to give the traditional vote of thanks.
I don't know which one is traditional and which one is not. But Your Excellency, the UI have 75 ambassador, head of the civil service of the Federation. I am elated, highly glad to stand to perform two quick functions. The first one is to physically appreciate you, and the other one is to appreciate you by words of mouth. And I have the honor to invite your department for the head of department to, on behalf of the students and staff of dentistry, make a presentation to you. I will also request, ma'am, that you step forward to receive this from your department. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, the Dean of Dentistry. The Dean of Dentistry. And by the power of the microphone, we are calling on the Provost of the College of Medicine to please join in this presentation. I also like to invite the Vice Chancellor.
So on behalf of the Faculty of Dentistry, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, we are giving you this Alumni Emeritus Award, particularly to the person of Dr. Folasade Yemi-Esan, a graduate of our faculty, and indeed my classmate. We finished at the same time, and then we met again during youth service. And then we worked together at OAU. Something happened at OAU, I will remind that. I will remind that. We went for the interview. They were to take 2 doctors, and they fielded about, I think, 7 doctors. The 2 of us from UI, the others from IFE. And they conducted the interview. At the end of the day, they needed 2 people. Professor List was the head. We were the only 2 people that got by the rest. I'm reminding her. So all what she has said is not fiction at all. Great UIs. Great UIs. Greatest.
Your Excellency, before I allow you to go, before the University Librarian, Dr. Mercy Iraganachi, to make this next presentation.
On behalf of the Council of the University of Ibadan, Senate, staff and students of this university, I made this presentation, an award presented to 2023
Professor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, Professor U.I to make this next presentation.
Your Excellency, on behalf of everybody in this university, you talked about culture. You are a cultural person. You mentioned something. You said you went into the office of somebody. You got the appointment on merit. But you mentioned something that struck me. You said you knelt down as you are taught.
May I also invite the two provosts here present and the Dean of Dentistry to please join us. Professor Arutuba, former Dean and member of Council, will also step up there.
Yes, sir. I'm on saying.
Thank you very much. Now to the second leg of my assignment. It is to appreciate God Almighty, who has made this day possible, bringing our guests back home to the University of Ibadan. Thank God for His protection over them since they came here yesterday. And we have the assurance that God will take you and your Israel back to your destination peacefully. Now we have to thank you most sincerely now. And I want to be a bit selfish here for allowing me to disturb you so much. And the preparation towards this occasion. I had to make several calls when it was convenient and when it was not convenient. But to the glory of God, all things have worked for good. So thank you very much, man, for creating time to do this for your university out of your very tight schedule. We know how it feels. We really do. And we are not taking it for granted. Can we please appreciate our excellency? Bringing the cream of the office of the head of service to celebrate with us. And so we welcome you all to the University of Ibadan. I don't know how many of you graduated from this university, but if you don't have a degree of this university, it is not too late. Even the MLA can still come back. We thank you and we celebrate you. We celebrate especially the head of service of your state, who is also an MLA and who came here long before the time for the program today. Even before any of us, I had to watch now to say, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you greatly. We appreciate Mr. Vice Chancellor and other principal officers, the University Orator, for being here. Of course, they have to be, it's our assignment. I appreciate all the deans, provost first, members of council, deans, heads of departments, directors, our living legends. Professor Derby is leading the column at this event of our living legends. I can see Dr. Ghanaian closely behind me, and I can see Mr. Shemowo also behind. And all our living legends here, those who are retired or not retired also, we want to thank you for joining us at this occasion. I appreciate the students of the University of Ibadan. On behalf of Mr. Vice Chancellor, I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much.